For millions of years, Earth was home to many kinds of human. Then, in a geological blink, they all disappeared. Except one. There was no asteroid in this story, no single disaster, just a slow, quiet vanishing that left exactly one kind of human standing on the whole planet. You. The question nobody can fully answer is simple and unsettling. What happened to the others? And did we have something to do with it? When you picture a human, you picture someone like you, one species. Different colors, different sizes, but fundamentally the same animal, spread across one planet. That is the only version of humanity you have ever known. It is also a kind of accident. For most of the last few million years, human was not one thing. It was a family, a crowded branching family tree with many kinds of people alive on it at the same time. Scientists have now identified at least 9 of them. 9. There was Homo habilis, chipping the first stone tools more than 2 million years ago. There was Homo erectus, who walked out of Africa and survived for nearly 2 million years, the longest run any kind of human has ever had, longer than ours so far. There were Neanderthals in the cold of Europe, Denisovans across Asia, and stranger branches still. On the island of Flores in Indonesia lived a kind of human barely 3.5 feet tall, with a brain the size of a chimpanzee's. Scientists found them in 2003 and nicknamed them the hobbits. On another island, Luzon in the Philippines, a different tiny human was uncovered and named only in 2019. In a South African cave called Rising Star, a small-brained human named Homo naledi may have been carrying its dead deep underground into the dark. These were not our ancestors marching in a straight line toward us. They were our cousins, and for a long time we all existed together. Here is the part that's hard to hold in your head. As recently as 40,000 years ago, you would not have been alone. Walk far enough in the right direction, and you would meet a different kind of human. Shorter. Stronger. A different face looking back at yours. A mind shaped by a different past. There were at least 4 or 5 kinds of human alive at the same moment in history. You had neighbors. Then, one after another, they went out like candles. Start with the Neanderthals, because we know them best. For a long time we imagined them as brutes. Stooped, grunting, stupid. That picture was completely wrong. Neanderthals controlled fire and made tools as good as ours. They buried their dead. In a cave in France called Bruniquel, they walked more than 1,000 feet into total darkness and built rings out of broken stalagmites. About 176,000 years ago, long before our kind ever reached Europe. In Spanish caves, red markings on the walls have been dated to at least 64,000 years old, made thousands of years before modern humans arrived, which means a Neanderthal stood in the dark, lifted a hand, and made art. They were not a lesser kind of human, they were another kind of human, and then, around 40,000 years ago, they were gone. So what happened? This is where the honest answer disappoints anyone hoping for a single villain. There is no asteroid, there is no plague we can point to and name. Instead, there is a list of quiet pressures, any of which could break a species already living on the edge. The climate of that age swung violently, freezing and thawing in a way that shrank their hunting grounds. Their populations were tiny and scattered, so scattered that inbreeding may have hollowed them out from the inside. And then there was us. Our ancestors were spreading into the same valleys, hunting the same animals, filling the same caves, and here is the part nobody likes to say out loud. We cannot rule out that we killed them. Not in one war. Nothing that dramatic. But every valley we took was a valley they lost. Every herd we hunted was food out of their mouths. We may have simply been better at surviving in a world that was already turning against them, and we may have watched them fade, valley by valley, generation by generation, until one day there was a last one, a final Neanderthal, somewhere, who was the only one of their kind left alive, and then not even that. That story repeated across the whole family. The hobbits of Flores vanished, the tiny humans of Luzon vanished, the Denisovans vanished. One by one, every other branch of the human tree was cut until a single twig was left. Yours. For the first time in millions of years, there was only one kind of human on Earth, and that has never changed since. You live in that strange, lonely aftermath right now, and it feels so normal that you never noticed it was strange. And here's the strangest part of that. We did not win because we were obviously better. Neanderthals had brains as large as ours, sometimes larger. They survived ice ages that would have killed you in a week. On paper, they were built for that world better than we were. We may have made it through for reasons as thin as luck. A slightly larger network of trade, a few more people, a run of good weather while their luck ran out. The line between the last kind of human and the extinct ones may be almost nothing at all, but that's only half the story, because the other humans did not vanish completely. In 2010, a scientist named Svante Pääbo at the Max Planck Institute in Germany did something that sounded impossible. He pulled DNA out of a Neanderthal bone, tens of thousands of years old, and read it. What he found rewrote the story of our species, and it won him a Nobel Prize. Because when he compared that ancient DNA to yours, the two did not sit neatly apart, they overlapped. Our ancestors did not just live alongside the other humans, they had children with them. If your family comes from anywhere outside Africa, roughly 2% of your DNA is Neanderthal, not a metaphor. Real genes in you, right now, inherited from a different species of human that no longer exists. The Denisovans are stranger still. We have almost no bones of them at all. For years, an entire kind of human was known from a single fingertip and a couple of teeth, reconstructed almost entirely from the DNA locked inside them. A whole people, rebuilt from a scrap. And in parts of the Pacific, living humans still carry as much as 4 to 6% Denisovan DNA. One gene passed down from the Denisovans is the reason some people can breathe easily on the highest plateau on Earth. The other humans are extinct, and they are also still here, hiding inside the survivors. Sit with what that means. Every other kind of human died out, but before they did, they left something of themselves inside us. You are not just the last kind of human. You are a container for the ones who didn't make it. Fragments of the Neanderthals, of the Denisovans, of cousins we barely have names for, folded silently into your body, doing quiet work in your cells while you sit here. For most of the story of humanity, to be human was to be one of many, to share the world with other minds that were almost but not quite like yours. That world is over. You will never meet another kind of human. You never had the chance. Somewhere in the last 40,000 years, the family closed down to a single line, and you are standing at the end of it. The rest of them are gone. You are what's left. And the hardest part is this. We will probably never know for certain whether they simply faded on their own, or whether the reason you are alone enough to read this is that your ancestors were the ones who remained when everyone else did not.